You
people
have
know.
you could have probably, like, I know Only Fools and Horses, they've done the stage show recently as well. You were obviously approached about doing that.
So
The Only Fools and Horses. Do you know the way they done it was on stage recently, they kind of brought it back and they were touring around the UK and Ireland. They done a lot of stuff on stage. Were you asked to go back and do that? I think you were asked to be Grandad or someone, were you? Or
what the musical?
yeah, the musical.
Yeah, when I had a call from them, and they said that Grandad Paul Whitehouse, he needed to take a couple of months off.
Yeah.
I don't know, he had other projects or whatever, but they said, would you consider playing Grandad? And I would have loved it. I would have nailed it. I knew him so well. It was wonderful, Leonard Pearce. But I've got the COPD thing, and it's great. I'm all right some weeks, and another week I'm bad. And when I'm bad, I'll be letting everyone down. I just wouldn't be able to do it. I want, it's a breathing thing, like, so I wouldn't be able to do the dancing and all that. I went on the first night, and funny enough, Phil was there again, because he played the Grandad, and Ray was there as well. So it was a bit like a scum reunion. It was really quite good fun, And the show, yeah, it was good. I mean, the feedback from other people, I'm looking at, there's not a lot of people that said it wasn't a great night. So it was good. And I met the guy who played my character, Mickey. And God bless him, he was in tears when he saw me. He said, "Oh my God, thanks for coming," and he was crying. I said, "Hey, you were really good. You did really well, And he said, I've studied you."
I think we've all studied Mickey Pearce. Obviously, growing up when we, I remember being his son as well, primary school. We'd always play characters, but everyone wanted to be Mickey Pearce because Mickey Pearce was Rodney and Mickey Pearce were always the messers. You know what I mean? They were the two young lads. These like charming the girls. Obviously, they were wheeling and dealing. Tell us, Patrick, what was it like to be Mickey Pearce and obviously, play such an iconic role in perhaps the biggest show, we've ever seen?
So, I didn't catch a lot of that because my speaker was cracking.
No, it's fine. So what was it like to be Mickey Pearce and obviously, have that iconic role? Like Only Fools and Horses will be, remembered as the greatest show ever.
Well, I mean, you see, with Fools and Horses, it was, you'd do the series maybe over 6 or 7 weeks, and then you'd be doing nothing for a year or two until the next series. Sometimes there was a 3-year gap between the series, and I was so typecast, I wasn't doing a lot in that 3 years,
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'd go cabbing. So I was cabbing, minicab driver. So I'd be driving, and this fellow would go, "Okay, now, you're Mickey Pearce." So I said, "Well, what are you doing in the cab?" I said, "Well, I'm doing a bit of work, Can I get a picture from my dad? Like, he loves it." I said, "Oh, so you don't?" He said, "Well, yes, I do." And it was like, and he, sometimes they'd be quiet, and I think, is that Mickey Pearce or not? And then as soon as I say something, they go, "You are him, aren't you? You are him." But I remember I was in a bar in Deptford once, and this fellow was coming out the bar, and I was coming in, and he had a pint in each hand, and he stopped, and he just dropped them like that. I said, "Oh God, Mickey Pearce." He dropped these pints on the floor. I said, "Yeah, all right, mate." And he went, "I went to a party last night where everyone was dressed as you. They were having Mickey Pearce parties in the day. And there were groups, there's one in Deptford called Mickey Pearce, and a lot of groups in Serbia and in Bosnia. They love my character, I don't know why. They like the Mickey, and there's lots of Mickey Pearce groups. They identify with him. But I found John Sullivan, the writer, God bless him, he was an absolute genius. He used to say to me when I was down a bit, he said, "You do know you are my favourite character." I go, "Oh, piss off, you just so But the thing was, I went to school in Peckham. I didn't have to do a lot of acting there. Of course, you have to know where you stand and what to do, and how to get it over. But the character itself was like all around me in my youth. So I knew Mickey Pearce's, I knew Rodney's, and I certainly knew Del Boy's. If you ask most people who are fans of the show, they probably know a Del Boy, and they can say, "Yeah, I do know a Rodney somewhere." You can relate, can't you? And then, of course, John's writing was just absolutely brilliant. I remember once, the way he writes, he goes out and he listens to people, he watches people. And there's a pub in Peckham, in Nunhead actually, called the Pyromaniacs Arms. And it's actually across the road from the Nun's Head, right, another pub. But he used to sit in there with his hoodie on, and he used to listen to all the banter, all the South London banter about, and lines like, yeah, well I hear that, Mickey Mouse is wearing a Rodney Todd wristwatch, and so hearing versions of that, and that goes in, and characters, like boring characters, you remember they go into the show, not just flamboyant characters. So you had triggers and you had all sorts of, but they were real people who based them on. But of course, putting it together, his genius was that when he was right in the room, so he could see everyone in that room. He knew that Uncle Albert was just about to walk through the kitchen door, and that trigger was still there in the corner, So it all worked and it all fuses together beautifully. He had that great sense, and also the beginning, middle of an end, and an end, which is something that all writers strive for. There was a gag always, and the sinews would run through one episode, and it all makes sense at the end. That was a brilliant gift to have. He was a fantastic writer, and I used to love the Monday going to work, and there was a script there, and I hadn't seen it, and for me that was like watching it, and we'd have the read through, and we'd fall about laughing reading it, and then say, come on, that was like 30 minutes reading time and 30 minutes laughing time, cut out the laughing, do it again, and get more and more used to it, so that we could actually do it without, creasing up, it was done in front of a live audience as well.
Yeah, that was. I couldn't believe that when I found that out, because I only found out a couple of years back that it was the live audience thing. That's mental, like.
Yeah, it was like the theatre in many ways, but the only problem was the audience would not stop laughing. And I mean, there was one particular scene where dear old Grandad, this was unbelievable. Excuse me. There's a scene where Rodney says, "No, I want to go into business with Mickey Pearce." And he says, so I want my cut of the takings. Dole gives him 150 quid. And goes, 150 quid? He said, all those years, I've worked for Trotters Independent Traders, and that's all I'm worth. And he says, well, what do you think? Well, what do you want all that money for anyway? He says, well, we need to buy some stock, we need advertising, and we need headquarters. And Grandad, who's sitting in the corner of the room with his two tellies, suddenly backs in and says, what are you going to get then, Rodney? A Wendy house?
I remember it.
He did it so beautifully, right? That first take, which we couldn't use because the audiences went, wow. And in the end, the director said, 40 minutes later, he said, if you don't stop laughing, you're going to have to leave the studio because we've only got the studio for 3 hours to get this in the can. So they'd all go quiet. And then 2 minutes later, someone would start up again. So we had to really... after that, every time we read through the script and we knew it was going to be funny, we'd say, there's another Wendy. We called it a Wendy in memory of Grandad, who was awesome.
Would you stay in touch with many of the actors? Obviously, we've seen you done an interview with Boycie there way back. I think it was on This Morning. I remember watching that. But would you stay in touch with many of the actors? Obviously, the conventions are a big thing, Patrick. But would you stay in touch with most of the lads?
So would
you stay in touch with them? Are you still in contact?
Oh yeah. Excuse me. Not so much with David and Nick. Right, because they're busy and they're always, but really, really busy. but we were a little gang of us, there was me and Boycie and John Chalice and Trigger, Roger Lloyd Pack, and Mike the barman. And we were like, we're sort of a little bunch of friends that used to sit together. And when we went out sort of filming on location, we probably all slide off down the pub for a quickie, together, The reasons why David and Nick couldn't join us is because it would just be too much, there'd be too many people coming in saying, "Can I have an autograph?" and this and that. But we could just about get away with it, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, you couldn't believe, like, when we were filming in Margate, there was one scene where we all go out to the beach, and there's Uncle Albert, and he does that, and he waves as a boat goes by, and you know, we turned around to run back up from that scene, and there was thousands of people watching us, thousands of people in Margate all watching us filming, you know, because by then, by the Jolly Boys Out and Fools and Horses was definitely the #1 show going, and yeah, it must have been so hard for David and Nick, like, because I mean, it's hard enough for us, the supporting actors.
Yeah.
But I can imagine what it was like for them. You know, it's just unbelievable. Like I say, you know, it's, Fools and Horses was a great joyride. You know, 30 years of some of the best scripts, and I'm not saying this just because you know, it's what you would say. We were friends. We were all mates, and you know, I had the press saying, "Go on, tell me something about them." What are you talking about? You know, I can't tell you nothing about him. He's a good actor. He's a good friend of mine. And there wasn't nothing to tell. And if there was, we certainly wouldn't be telling anyone. Why spoil it for anyone anyway? Even if there was, you know. So the fact that we were friends and still are, when we meet, if we did another series tomorrow, I mean, you'd have to reserve the first hour for hugging and kissing, and I haven't seen you for ages. You know? And I remember the last time, I mean, we all got grey hair, like there was a big gap, you know, from the last time we were all together. And it was like, you know, yeah, we're all grey hair now, we all moved on a bit. But,
I can only imagine the demand. Like, the demand is huge, Patrick. Like, people to this day still want Only Fools and Horses to come back. Obviously, you know, David's, you know, he's got a bit older. But like, I've seen the videos of the convention. The convention was last year. I actually spoke to Ricky Hatton, and Ricky Hatton, the boxer, was telling me he was actually going up to meet David Jason and all of you up there. But you obviously enjoy the conventions because crowds are incredible at them. Like, they're sold out probably after a day or so.
Yeah, you know, people are always asking for another series, but without John Sullivan, it's just, you know, I think it would be disrespectful, to be honest. You know, he's written every single. The only person who would possibly get away with it is his son, who wrote the musical. You know, and that wouldn't be a disrespect because he's his son. But
it's his son, but it's John's baby, as you say. Like, it's his baby.
Yeah.
Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, but he wrote a musical, but Fools and Horses in itself was, I mean, even Rock and Chips. Fools and Horses was a situation comedy. Rock and Chips was a comedy drama. They're two different things. And the comedy, well, our job is to make you laugh, and we've got half an hour to do it. And then that make you laugh, where you have to use all the different forms of comedy that are available. You know, slapstick, farce, you know, whatever. You know, you've got to do a bit. And David was master of, you know, a lot of those. Well, some of us could be good at this and good at that. You know, some of us have more dramatic skills were, you know. But for me, the kids say to me, you know, a lot of kids say to me, "You're my favourite actor because you're not acting in it." I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or not,
but it's fair to say, it's fair to say, right, that, like, you know, in this interview that we've done today, like, the Mickey Pearce character is pretty much similar to the Patrick Murray real life fiction, because you've done some incredible stuff. Like, you know, you were I suppose a cheeky schoolboy. You know, you've done some great acting. You play poker. You've got poker. You know, you ended up in Vegas playing poker. You went to Thailand on a holiday.
Yeah.
Stay there 10 years. You know, you're back in the UK. You have a beautiful baby, a beautiful wife. Like, it's definitely similar to Mickey Pearce, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't argue. You know what I mean? Just having my baby was a big surprise. You know, 5 years ago, I thought I was firing blanks. You know, but you know, so Charlie Chaplin had, you know, even David Jason. I think he was 71 when he had his last baby. Yeah. But I thought I was firing blanks. You know, And when Mum said to me, she started getting all broody, and she said, "I want a baby," and I said, "Well," I said, "we'll leave it to Buddha, you know." And I said, "Are you taking?" She said, "I said, well, we don't do any more." You see what Buddha says straight away. Bang.
Happy days.
The greatest thing that's ever happened in my life is, you know, when you're young and you have kids, right? You're a kid yourself, pretty much, you know.
And
When I was
I
younger,
have a son. I actually have I have a 4-year-old and I have one on the way. So I'll be a dad for the second time in September. So it's unbelievable, as you know, Patrick.
but when you're older and you have kids, like it's a totally different ball game. You know, it's absolutely. I mean, I was great before, but when you're older, you're more. You know what to do. You know, you've been there, you've done it, you've seen it, and you know what. You know, and the joy of childhood is there for you to take in, and you know, and it's so more beautiful, much more beautiful. Whereas when you're younger, you've still got all the battles to fight, and you've still got to go work, and you've only got 2 minutes there, and you know, you're rushing, and oh my God, you know, yes, all right, I've been done. You know, I mean, when you're older, it's a different ball game completely. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. You know, she's wonderful.
And she's
And
going to
I mean,
follow in your footsteps, no doubt. She'll follow in your footsteps. She'll be just.
well, Josie, she's 5.5, and she'll sing, you know, the Frozen song, you know, Let It Go, and the new one, the Frozen song. She'll sing those songs word for word, and she'll do all the actions and all that, you know. It's just, you know, she seems to have no nerves. So I wouldn't push her that way, but I consider her going that way because, yeah, we play act a lot as well. You know, I'm always putting faces, and you know, it's. People say to me, "How did I learn to act?" I spent my first 3 years, 4 years in the theatre. I did Shakespeare and I did plays, and but before that, the real way I learned to act was my two big brothers. They used to beat the shit out of me virtually every day when I was younger. And if I couldn't act and pretend that they'd hurt me, stop, yeah. If I couldn't tell them to stop without convincing them I wasn't lying, they wouldn't stop. So that's when I learned how to be convincing. I never got on the back foot. You know, I said, my eyes fucked out. Oh my God. And they'd leave me, you know. But and that got me my first role in the theatre, you know, because it was a role where I was being, you know, bashed up and I got, you know, screaming and shouting. And first 5 minutes on the stage, and that from there I got a new agent straight away. The director's agent said, "I want to see you." And I went to her office, and there was this big chair, and I sat in this chair, and there was Cat Stevens albums all around the office. You know, do you remember Cat Stevens?
Yeah.
And she was his agent, and she was Elsie Tanner's agent as well on Coronation Street, you know. And she said, "I'll take you on for 6 months." And I actually didn't get any TV work for nearly 4 years, but in that time I did lots and lots of theatre. I did my schooling. And she, you know, while I was in the theatre, all these actors used to say, "Oh, we'd never do an advert." No, we'd never do an advert. And I used to go, "Yeah, I'd never do an advert." My agent called me, she said, "I've got an advert for you." I said, "Oh no, I'll never do an advert." She said, "Listen, I've got an advert for you. Get your ass down to so and so." I went down there, and I did this advert, and best thing I ever did. You know, I mean, the money was great. You know, a day's work, and after that, I was in every other advert that came out. I was the king of the adverts in this country. You know, I did Zanussi, I did all the beers, and normally you can only do one beer. You know, if you do a cider advert, you can't do a bit of advert. I did cider. I did 4 different pizza adverts. I did Kentucky Fried Chicken, Zanussi, the appliance of science. It ran for 4 years, and an advert I did for Pizza Hut, where I'm chatting up 2 girls, and the punchline was, "Don't tell me you're a Gemini." That advert only ran for 2 weeks, but that was the advert that got me the part in Only Fools and Horses, because they were talking about Mickey Pearce, and they were trying to find someone for 2 years. And the producer, he saw the advert, and he went, "That's Mickey." And they called me, and I went to this audition, I was very busy, man, very, very busy. So I went to this audition and I read the script. You know, yeah, we've sold the lawnmower into them carrot crunchers out in the streets and all that. And the director went, that's it. So can you start Monday? I went, yeah, sure, all right. No big shakes. Anyway, I went to my local pub that day. Who'd have thought it in Plumstead? And all right, Pat, I ain't seen you for a bit. Yeah, I've been busy. He said, what have you been up to? I said, well, I've got a part in this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Only Fools and Horses. I went, Only Fools and Horses? You're kidding me. That is the absolute bollocks, mate. I went, oh, what? You didn't even know, you know. And when I got and read that script, then I went, wow, yeah. I thought, wow, this is the one. You know.
The rest is history because, as you say, look at all the awards it won. You know what I mean? Your character is legendary. It's something that will never fizzle out. You know, 300 years from now, you know, you'd have Mickey Pearce's walking around the place. There was probably babies called after you. A lot of Mickeys around the place, you know.
Yeah. But you know, life's a funny thing. You know, when you're young, if you want to do something, just let it happen because it happens. We don't put hurdles in our way. The day I decided to become an actor, I was in my mate's house, Jimmy Ross, and he was talking about a friend. He said, my mate's an actor. I said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, he did an advert, and for one day's work, he got 1,200 quid. I went, this is in the 70s, 1,200 quid. He went, yeah, for one day's work. I went, yeah, well, I suppose he went to acting school. He went, no. I said, well, his parents are obviously producers, directors. And he went, no. I said, what do you mean, it's just like me and you? He went, yeah. I said, well, I'm going to be an actor then. A week later, I was on stage at the Royal Court Theatre, starting my acting career. I just looked at the adverts and think, where do you see an advert for an actor? In the Daily Mirror of all papers, they did adverts in those days, and it said, young actor required, must be under 5 foot tall, which I was. I looked very young for my age. And it was from an agent. I went to see the agent, got me an audition. 3 days later, I'm at the Royal Court Theatre. I go home to my mum, who's Spanish, and she said, Patrick, where you been? I said, I've been up to this audition. I've got a job. I'm an actor. I said, oh, don't be silly, Patrick. Come on, eat your dinner. That's it. You know. And yeah, the Royal Court Theatre I started. And while I was there, you know, I saw my first script and I thought, ratings doesn't seem a bad idea. We'll do put a name on what they say. So I wrote a play and I won the Observer Young Playwright of the Year. And they actually did the play on the stage that I was on, you know, and it was published. And when I wrote it, I thought, yeah, I'll do this, but what I want to do is I want to write a play for everyone in the class so everyone gets a role. No stars, no biggies, everyone's 30 people in my play. And it was called the Youth Club. And all these characters all got something to do, which is one. And I achieved that goal because it was published by Macmillan Education.
Yeah.
And they were doing it in schools, and that's exactly where I wanted it to go, and it went there. I didn't make no money out of it, but for me, it was one of my lifetime achievements. And these things you can only achieve if you don't see the hurdles. You just get on with it. It's like, no, I'll do it. As we get older, we become more, you know, it's not so easy, is it? We see all those hurdles and all those barricades that say, yeah, well, this will happen. When you're younger, you just go on with it, didn't you? And that was, well, that's how I was. Maybe I was lucky in the early days.
You had the right attitude, Patrick. Like, as I say, it's been a remarkable career. You're still only a baba. You still look fresh. You know, poker, living in Ireland, Thailand, you know, being in Malaysia, doing a film, you know, Only Fools and Horses, Scum. It's been one hell of a journey. I know, an incredible dad. So, like, all we can say, Patrick, is it's an absolute honour speaking to you. Like, I don't get starstruck. We had Louis Ferrigno on with us yesterday, all the way in Hollywood, and we don't get starstruck. But when it comes to Only Fools and Horses, I'm obsessed with the show. And you're a legend, my friend. So thank you for taking the time to speak to us. It means a huge amount.
You're welcome, mate.
It means a lot. And I'm going to touch base with you really soon, okay? I promise you. I'll give you my word on what we... No, fair is fair.
Yeah, no, love everyone in Ireland, yeah?
Yeah, and I'll see you soon. I'll probably, as you say, when we can fly back to the UK, I'll probably see you at a convention or I'll see you shortly. But if I don't, I promise you, I'll see you soon, okay?
Cheers, mate. Bonjour.
Bonjour. See you soon, Patrick. Be good?
Yeah.
Thanks, bud.
All the best.
See you soon. Thank you.
Yeah.